Welcome back. Today we are looking at Japan again. And this might be one of the best newscasts on Japan. We can see by today's news how Japan is ahead of the game when I look at all the other countries in the world on how they're dealing with abusive religions. So let's take a look at Japan here. We'll zoom in to what I have on my screen here. And this is from watching the Watchtower, Jehovah's Witness conventions. Now I'll blow that up here a bit. Okay, so this is the article, Jehovah's Convention, Possibility of Continuation of Forcing Children to Participate, former second generation holds press conference. So it goes on to say on the 4th, the second generation religions issued network, which is made up of former second generation members of the new Christian religion, Jehovah's Witnesses, held a press conference in Tokyo regarding the conventions held by Jehovah's Witnesses across the country. And they pointed out that children are forced to participate and that child abuse is extremely likely to be continuing. So you see, by forcing your children to go to the assembly and miss school, that's child abuse in Japan. The group requests that local governments and other organizations request that religious groups refrain from engaging in child abuse, as specified in the national guidelines. And according to the national guidelines, forcing children to engage in religious activities against their will, or forcing children to participate in religious activities at times that may interfere with their schooling or daily life, constitutes child abuse in Japan. It is said that regarding the tournaments, they call them tournaments, regarding the conventions, or that's what really they're talking about, but they call them tournaments. It's funny. Regarding the conventions held by the cult between June and October of this year, and you notice they call them the cult. The network said that because the scheduled dates include weekdays and that the duration of the tournaments lasted 7 to 8 hours a day, you know, those conventions are like tournaments, eh? There are concerns that participants may be forced to take time off from work and participate. You know, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, they used to say you may have to quit your job. If your employer does not understand, you may have to quit your job because you have to go to the assembly, the convention, or the tournament. Anyways, they're true in saying that Jehovah's Witnesses, they push that to quit your job, your kids have to miss school, you know, all of this stuff. And in June of this year, 34 people submitted an urgent request requesting that necessary measures be taken to ensure that the children are not forced to participate against their will or that their school attendance or daily life is disrupted. And the information was submitted to each local government and operating company that owns the venue. So for 17 of the facilities, measures were taken, including asking the religious groups to confirm that no child abuse occurred and requesting that they be informed of national guidelines. And in response, the religious organization said, "We respect the decisions of the parents and the children as to whether or not the children attend the religious gathering." Bullshit. We call bullshit. So anyways, that's always what they say, stuff like that. But this is interesting, folks, what's going on and how they're investigating these conventions. And if the children are forced to go, so you children out there, if you're forced to go, that's child abuse. Because when that child grows up, that child may decide, I do not want to be in this religion. Why did you force me? You know, this is what's going on. Let's look at another article. This one here is Jehovah's Witnesses display materials and videos containing sexual content at large gatherings attended by children. Second generation religious group points this out. You know, I got thinking about that, and they do get into sexual stuff right in front of the kids at the meetings, conventions. They get into all kinds of stuff. The Bible's full of all kinds of sexual stuff, you know, obscene stuff, if you want to talk about it that way. So they're not wrong. Now, it goes on to say on the fourth, the second generation network, which is made up of, we read that already. And it said, according to the network, Jehovah's Witnesses held 64 large-scale gatherings called conventions in 42 locations across the country between June and October. And in Tokyo here, it says these events are held for 3 consecutive days on weekends when the school is in session and children take time off from school to attend. And it says materials and videos containing sexual content were used at the venue. Interesting. And the network said it is difficult for children to refuse to attend, and there is a high probability that their right to attend school is being violated. Of course it is. Of course it is. Because the parents are saying, we're going to the assembly and you're not going to school. That's how the governing body has instructed the whole world to teach everything else is secondary, that the conventions are first. Even quit your job is what they were teaching when I was at JW. So it says here, in some cases, this may amount to sexual abuse. They're calling it sexual abuse. Interesting. Jehovah's Witnesses responded to the network press conference saying, it is extremely unfortunate that false claims were made. No, these are not false claims. Japan is nailing it. Japan is nailing this. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next. But here's what's happening now. Let's look at this next article. This again is from Watchtower. And this, I'll just put it on this screen. This is a bill right now, bill for victims' relief. And you remember, if you're following Japan, the Unification Church, they got nailed first. And so now we're at this point, because the Unification Church, what they're afraid of, they're going to start pulling assets. And they even mentioned that out of the country. And isn't that what New York is doing? Pulling assets out of countries? Are they not getting all the kingdom halls signed over to New York and saying, yeah, we'll look after it, we own it all, has this not already happened? Or is Japan going to go after them? Let's see what happens here. Bill for victims' relief in Unification Church case clears lower house. So this has cleared their house, their parliament, their lower house. We'll read this. It has a paywall, so we'll get part of it. It says a bill that aims to prevent a religious organization's assets from being transferred overseas so that it can be set aside to provide relief to potential victims passed to the lower house on Tuesday after days of negotiation between ruling and opposition lawmakers. And the ruling coalition, the Liberal Democratic Party, along with the opposition party, the Democratic Party for the People, submitted amendments to their special bill based on the discussions with other opposition parties, namely the Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan. And the bill was sent to the upper house, paving the way for it to pass both chambers in the current parliament sessions that ends on December 13th. So the rest of the story, you can get it. I'll put the links in. And this is interesting, folks. They're not allowing assets to leave the country, and they're going to hold these religions accountable to pay the victims, because these religions do not want to pay the victims. And this is what's happening all over the world. Japan is smart to this. Let's lock the assets up, and we'll take the assets, and we'll pay the victims. And this is what's happening, folks. This is what I see that's going on next. This is where religion is going. Japan's a little bit ahead of everyone else. So we want to give Japan a big applause for what they're doing here, because this has to happen. It has to happen. So folks, that's the end of the news for today. And until next time, keep living your life with love. Bye for now.